Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 213 of the Kiss Army Nation podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Pasquale Veri.
And I am Claudio Spera. Welcome to the show, everyone.
On this episode, we'll be tackling a fun challenge. If you had to introduce someone to Kiss using just 5 songs, what would they be? We're building the ultimate starter kit for new fans and debating what truly captures the essence of the band.
So we're going to kind of jump right into this episode, looking at what hooks a new fan into a particular band. And then we're going to give you our pick of 5 songs to introduce someone to Kiss. Before going there, Pask, let's introduce our dear friends and colleagues today. So, Michael, always nice to see you. Pat, nice to see you too.
Good to be here as always.
How are you guys? You're doing okay?
Doing well, thank you very much. Summer's going okay, and work is busy.
There you go. There you go. Well, vacation is coming soon, so looking forward to it. Pask, get us started on this fantastic episode.
Okay, this is going to be interesting because in choosing our 5 songs to get new fans into the band, in a sense, we're also going to be talking about what makes Kiss Kiss. What is the essence of the band? What gets people into a band like Kiss? So this should be interesting. So let's start with this question. It's an interesting one. What do you think a band needs to have to hook a new fan in 2025? Because how we got into Kiss in 73 is not the way we get into bands today. So what does a band need to have to hook a new fan in 2025? Patrick, what are your thoughts?
I think for any band, it's funny. I can only speak for myself, but what got me attracted to the Rolling Stones was I knew about them when I was a kid, but didn't really pay attention to them. But then you discover their original guitarist, Brian Jones, died in a swimming pool. And then they had this concert where everything went wrong. So curiosity could be a factor. It could be morbid curiosity, but when you listen to it and you go, oh, there's some good stuff in there. So I think in the case of Kiss, I think it's at this point what could attract newer fans to say, well, my father or my uncle or whoever is a big fan, let's see what this is about. I think that a band either needs a history or something that makes them go, okay, I need to check this out because I hear about another example, Leonard Skinner with the unfortunate plane crash. You know, I only knew Sweet Home Alabama. I didn't even know Freebird. I can't believe that. So, but then you go, okay, I'm going to pay attention to what they do. And you go, wow, first thing I know, I have a greatest hits. I have a DVD and a live concert. So it's that kind of thing. I think there needs to be something that makes people curious, and hopefully they will get hooked once they hear the music.
Okay, good. So curiosity first. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Michael, what do you think?
So I wrote I was thinking, a number of things here. I mean, for myself personally with Kiss in the early 80s, I mean, seeing their video for I Love It Loud was my first exposure to them. And then in 93, when I really got into them, it was because I saw a bootleg DVD of their Houston 1977 show. So it was a combination of the music and the performance, and with it the costumes and the makeup, etc., that got me hooked into it. So that's what got me into Kiss. But for myself personally, the thing that mainly hooks me in to a new artist or a new band, it has to always primarily be the music. As I've said on previous time when I've been on, the music for me is like the cake. Everything else is frosting. So, the cake has to be good. It has to be tasty. And, that's what it has to be. The music has to be there. So I'm not going to like Kiss just because they wear, costumes, or because there's bombs that go off during the show, or because Paul flies across the arena, or because Gene spits blood. I mean, that's all nice and everything, but it's frosting. I have to like the songs. I have to like the music. And as I've already said, a live presence, and how a band or how an artist performs live is important to me as well. I'm a a big believer that, what you listen to in the privacy of your own home or in the privacy of your car or wherever on the subway going to work, if that can translate also into a good live experience, then that obviously also is a positive. One thing I will add here in 2020, if we're talking about what hooks in people to a band or an artist now in 2025, on top of what I've just said, social media presence has to be taken into account. I can only think of one band or one artist that I know that I have in my collection that has barely no social media presence. Okay, everybody else has a Facebook page. Everyone has a YouTube channel, Instagram account, TikTok, whatever. I'm not into every single one of those things, but I am able to follow, what's going on with pretty much any artist I know. The only artist that I follow in that I have in my collection, I won't say who it is, but the only way I get news about them is through their record label's Facebook page, and I don't know why that is, but it is how it is, but everybody else, literally 99.999% of the rest of them, they have a social media presence. I mean, back in the 70s or in the 80s, you would, staple posters to telephone poles and, on boards along the street, this and that, advertising your album or advertising your shows. Well, now the internet is how you advertise, your music. It's how you advertise the shows that are coming up for yourself. If I want to know that an artist I like is going on tour, I just go to their Facebook page and I see what they're up to, or I go to Polestar and I see what they're up to, or if they are up to anything, So in 2025, if you want to hook somebody in, definitely artists need to have a social media presence. I mean, obviously it's something Kiss never had originally, but at some point, it's like, oh, we better get on Facebook, we better get on YouTube, we better get on Twitter, whatever, So I think that's important too. But the primary two things are for me always the music and the live presentation.
Okay, Claudio, your thoughts?
Nice. Well, there's many things that have already been mentioned by Michael and also Pat. I would like to concentrate maybe on 2-3 different aspects. So the first one is the music. I think that we're not talking about building loyalty here. So we're just talking about hooking someone in. Okay, so grab your attention. So I put myself in the position, I'm going on my car, listen to the radio, wherever. So to me, in terms of music, if the band has a distinctive sound, if I'm able to see something different, whether if it's an instrument or the voice within the first, let's say 20, 30 seconds, that I think that's a plus. Okay, it has to be recognizable. It has to be something different. Then I don't want to repeat what Michael said, but I agree with him about the visuals. The live presence of the band has to really make a difference. And if I may, I'm going to make the example. I'm going to take the example of a Montreal band. The Damn Truth. So you put the music on. It's fantastic. It's great. It has a vibe. Lila's voice. It's kind of unique. When you see them live, you're hooked forever. Okay, that's at least what happened with me. So that's a very important aspect. If I come back to the music, I think that having one killer song as a first impression, that's also key to kind of hook someone in. With so much information out there, with so many streaming platforms, if you're able to recognize one song over and over again, I think that's a really, really important key factor on hooking someone in. And even if I repeat myself, and I'm going to kind of repeat what Michael said, 2025, social media, TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, But again, I just want to mention that we live so fast, and people now they're not going to spend half an hour trying to digest something. it has to be short form content, has to be fast. If a band posts, let's say, behind the scenes content on the media, on social media, something unique, something funny, it's going to build up. It's going to build up a following. Maybe breaking down songs or influences or short interviews. That's also factors that will contribute to hooking someone in. And the rest, as I said before, I don't want to repeat everything that Michael said, but all great points, about music and live performance. And also, before I finish, getting back to fans also, I think it's really, really important these days. When there's engagement from the bands, even if it's a short answer, it doesn't have to be automation or something that you feel that it's kind of responded by a machine. If you see that someone has taken the time to respond to your question or your comment, that hooks you in.
I have a certain perspective that I'm going to take throughout this entire episode and what I believe to be the reason why people today get into a band like Kiss. And I'm going to go contrary to what Michael was saying, although I agree it should be about the music. When it comes to Kiss, and if you want to get people into Kiss, in my opinion, it's about the frosting first. Get them into the frosting, then they're going to go deeper into the cake. Go through the frosting, then you'll get to the cake eventually. Mm-hmm. But they got to get through that frosting first, in my opinion. When it comes to a band like Kiss, I got into the damn truth, Claudio, because of the music, not because of the spectacle. And the show just elevated it for me. It was completely over the top. Mm-hmm. But for a band like that, it was the music. For Kiss, I think it's the frosting. But in today's time, it's really a combination of their legacy and the modern connection. And that's the hook I'm going to use throughout this entire episode. It's that modern connection. Fans are not going to get into a band like Kiss because of their history, because of Paul, Gene, Peter, and Ace. And fans are going to hate me for this. It's because of Paul, Gene, Tommy, and Eric. It's today's band. If they don't get into today's band, they're not going to get into the band at all. But fans need to understand the whole spectacle of the band, the whole over-the-top performances. And how do you get a fan into a band like Kiss? Show them a Kiss concert, obviously. But people are going to think, well, obviously, show them a classic concert from 1974, 75, 76. No. Show them Monster. Show them End of the Road. Show them what they can do today, what Kiss is like today. Because if you hook them with that, then they're going to start working their way backwards and learning more and more about the legacy of Kiss. That's the first component. The second is they have to discover Kiss in pulp culture. Kiss has to be a part of their world, or they're never going to be a part of that world. Fans will never join that world if it's not a part of it already. So, I would introduce fans to television performances that Kiss have done presently. Nothing comes to the top of my head. I think they did Dancing with the Stars or something. They did a few performances recently that would hook a fan. Look at I Was Made for Loving You. You think a fan would get into Kiss because I Was Made for Loving You, aka 1979? No. But that song hit the billion mark because it became relevant today. So the only way a fan will get into Kiss if the band is relevant today. Not that they were relevant 50 years ago. It's got to be today, or we're never going to hook them in.
Good points. Really good points. Well, actually, that's a perfect segue to the next question, which is, if we think that it's harder or easier to get into a band like Kiss today, you talked about the legacy, past, but also there's so much competition today for attention out there, and the attention span from young people is so different than what we had in the past. So, Michael, I'm going to start with you. Do you think it's harder or easier to get into a band like Kiss today?
A band like Kiss, with all their legacy, with their entire career behind them, essentially, I would probably say it's harder. I mean, nowadays, I find it easier to get into newer bands, and I do enjoy getting into newer bands because, it's my way of helping, these new bands move forward. That, the music business is not what it used to be, and if we want this music to survive, we need the newer bands. But a band that started, let's say, in 2020, who by now has, let's say, 2 albums out, how much homework do I need to do? It's like, okay, I like this band. I've heard a song or someone's recommended them to me. Okay, they have 2 albums. Let me listen to those 2 albums online. If I like them, me being who I am, I still like physical media. I'll go out and I'll order their CDs, or I'll get their albums on vinyl.
Mm-hmm.
How many albums does Kiss have?
Yeah.
I don't know. The number is too high, is too high. But when I really got into Kiss in '93, when I had 1974 to 1993 to look at, to go back and purchase and listen to and deep dive into. It would have been easier if the band had started in 1990, but that wasn't the case. But it's happened a number of times in my life where I only, if you take a band like Pink Floyd, I only got into Pink Floyd in 2000 or 2001, many years after their last world tour, and they stopped making records and stuff. But the universe decided that, okay, Michael, this is when you're going to get into Pink Floyd, but there was still like a very large catalog to get into, and to the point of competition. Well, yeah, I mean, nowadays anybody can just pick up a guitar, sit in front of their iPhone, hit record, play a song on whatever, a guitar or keyboard or whatever, load it up onto YouTube, and sure enough, you got a song that other people can hear. It's as easy as that. You don't need a record label or anything, or to have music out there. I have a friend who is in a band here locally. They have they have 6 or 7 albums out available on iTunes.
Mm-hmm.
They've never had a record contract. They've never had anything. They've had very little visual coverage, let's say, from the news media or anything. But they have like 6 or 7 albums out on YouTube. So if you want to get into them, you can.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is definitely more competition, and as a result of the way it is now, there's less quality control. There used to be a time when you had record executives or people working at record labels who would listen to demo tapes and this and that and say, oh, okay, let's bring that band in and let's see what they're about. Nowadays, I mean, if I want, if I'm the person with the acoustic guitars, putting something up on YouTube, who's the quality control? It's me. I'm auditing myself kind of thing. I think this is fantastic. It doesn't necessarily mean the whole world will think that. Now you can make the counter argument and say, well, now it's easier for anybody to, now there's no velvet rope, so to say. Now anybody can get into the club and, create music and become something. I mean, how did Justin Bieber become popular? It was because he had videos up on YouTube and someone happened to notice. And the rest is history. Whether you like Justin Bieber or not, that's what happened. But yeah, overall, I do think it's more difficult, and especially for an artist like Kiss or anybody that has a huge back catalog. You do have to find a way to kind of, grab their attention, perhaps on a small scale at first, and that could be a song, or that could be the cake, which is the song, or that could be something like Frosting, which is what the road that Pasquale seems to be going down, which is fine, but there needs to be something that kind of grabs you initially to say, hey, check me out. I'm worth listening to. And if you like this, well, maybe you'll like the other 20 albums I've made, but with the kind of backlog, with the kind of back catalog that Kiss has, yeah, I mean, it'll, if someone really wants to deep dive, then yeah, it'll take them some time, but well worth the time, in my opinion. But it's harder overall as far as I'm
okay. Fair enough. Pat, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree that it's harder for a band like Kiss, because I wonder if there's a crossover with the younger generation. There may be a few, but a lot of them are going to see them as old timers. They're probably going to be more attracted to artists of their generation, if we can say that. Maybe later on they could say, well, I'm curious to hear that because, like, when I was, as I said before, when in the '80s, I was into Kiss, of course, but newer bands like Poison, Motley Crue, and all those people. Don't tell me about the Rolling Stones, or don't tell me about Cream or Jimi Hendrix. I knew of them, but I had zero interest.
Hmm.
But as I got, I hate to say it, but as I got older, I kind of discovered why those people were important. But initially, I wasn't interested. So I think it could be the same for the younger generation for Kiss. It's like, yeah, that old band that my father or grandfather listens to. Probably as time goes by, they might, but I think it's a very, very how can I say this? A tall order to appeal to newer fans.
Hmm.
A band like this can have, and also for the same reason you said, Michael, probably the fact that they have such a huge catalog. Probably their best bet would be to grab the greatest hits and to see if they're gonna like what they hear. I mean, although Kiss wasn't a band with many hits, you still have the big songs. I always, so when someone asks me, not that it happens often, what should I buy? Buy the Gold compilation. It's going to give you a good portion of the first years. It's going to give you an idea of what Kiss was initially rather, and if you feel like you want to, go a little further, then get an album.
Yeah.
Get an album like I would recommend, although Lick It Up, Creatures of the Night, Rock and Roll Over, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, definitely a tall order for Kiss to be appealing to a younger generation for sure.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
I mean, you can't deny the fact, though, that you have, especially in the last decade or so, you have, families showing up to Kiss
Yeah.
concerts.
Hmm.
So you have a
Sure.
grandfather and a father and a son there, or
Definitely.
grandmother, mother, and a daughter there.
Mm.
So some people who are fans have an easier time of passing the legacy down to their young ones, but the young ones have to be interested in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
will it make them a fan? They can enjoy the show, but would they become a fan? That's the
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, they can help out,
yeah.
kind of thing. But at the same time, it's like, you know, you follow your own kind of, you follow your own path kind of thing. And, not just in music, but in many things, so yeah.
But Michael, that's the point, I think, right? These kids who are going to shows with their parents, they got into Kiss because they discovered Kiss in pulp culture. How many kids got into Kiss because of Scooby Doo, and now we're Kiss fans because of it, right?
Mm.
In my opinion, again, it has to be something relevant today to get fans in, or else we're not going to get them in. But the question here is it easier or harder to get into a band like Kiss today? And I think, yeah, it's definitely harder, but it's a little bit of both, really, because it's easier because now we have all this information at the tip of our fingers.
Yep.
We could go anywhere and find anything on the band. We could learn anything about the band. We couldn't do that in the 70s.
Mhm.
We had to wait for the latest magazine or documentary on television or MTV or something. Now, I want to learn something, not a problem. So if someone wants to get into the band, it's so much easier today if
Yeah.
they are interested, if they get hooked into it. The
Mhm.
only problem is, and I'm speaking from experience here with my students, there's so much competition for kids' attention today. And I've always said it, streaming is the worst thing that could happen to music
Mm.
because people don't experience music anymore. They listen to a little bit here, a little bit there. They
Mm.
like this song, they like that song, but they don't like a particular band. The era of super bands are gone. Once the Rolling Stones are gone, all these mega bands are gone, that's it. We're
Mhm.
going to be into songs, not bands,
Mhm.
because that's what streaming has done to music. And holding that hard copy of an album,
Mhm.
the thing of the past to so many people, because they don't want to sit through an entire album. They want to listen to one song here or one song there. You'll never get into a band if you do that. So, and then you have like TikTok trends from one thing to another. Like I said, streaming overload. Kids have a short attention span. To get into a band like Kiss with a legacy of 50 years, you have to commit time and effort and energy to learn about that band. And I don't think kids today have that kind of attention to
Yeah.
be able to do that. They're going to get into a song like I Was Made for Loving You because of the Fall Guy movie, but that will be the extent of it because, oh, this is cool, good song. Oh, Kiss did this. Oh, this is nice. It ends there because now there's something else on TikTok, something else on Instagram, something else on whatever. They're getting pulled in all kinds of directions. It's almost impossible to get into a true band today. And it's really, I think, hurting the music business.
That's one of the reasons why I continue buying CDs and buying vinyl, because I have to, it almost forces me to monopolize that 45 minutes or 60 minutes of my time.
Exactly.
It's like, okay, this 60 minutes, okay, I'm doing this, and that's basically it. So I'm giving of myself this amount of time. I can't find the word, but yeah, I think you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Whereas streaming or something else, or even listening to, satellite radio, Sirius XM, I mean, I enjoy it. They have some great channels, but I'm not in my car. I'm not going to sit there for, 2 hours if a station happens to be playing an entire concert by a band. It's just not going to happen. I'll listen to a little bit. I might flip to another station, then I might flip to another station, and 20 minutes later, my car ride is done. So yeah,
when we got into Kiss, we committed to the band. People today do not commit. Do not commit. Anyway, yes. Claudio, what do you think?
Well, just not to repeat what you guys said, I think it's a tough question, man. Somehow it's harder. I agree with you guys because of competition. We have to remember that in the 70s, Kiss, was so unique, and basically you could say that they owned the cultural moment. Okay, they were the owners of that. Now they compete with stuff on the net, which belongs to nobody, you know what I mean? So a million TikTok clips, as you said before, every other band ever, video games, podcast, so it's harder definitely for competition. It's easier for access to legacy content, as you guys said. Now, here's the twist. I think that legacy bands like Kiss or AC/DC, bands that are still around, I think they still have some superpower, which is the mythology. Kids, through their parents or grandparents, they know about, the fire, the blood, the personas, the characters. That kind of mythology could be something really attractive to get someone with the will of wanting to go deeper into the catalog, for instance. Okay, so I want to know what these guys were doing at that time, for instance, even if it's for 5 minutes. So for newer fans who want spectacle, who wants, the rebellion, the ritual, a band like Kiss can deliver the goods, definitely. So that could be a plus for Kiss. Now, going back to the question, is it harder or easier? I think it's harder to capture attention in the first place, but it's easier to become a fan once the hook is set. Okay, if for some reason, as we discussed in the previous question, if you're hooked, then with so much access to stuff, you can become a fan. And we have to remember that the band's universe, the whole idea, the vision that Kiss had from the beginning was built for fandom, consumption, massive consumption of stuff. So I think, Kiss could have an advantage compared to other bands. But yeah, a tough one, man. It's harder and easier at the same time. But it's not like in the 70s, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. I want to also go back to something Michael talked about. Is it the cake or the frosting, which leads to our next question. Can you truly understand a band like Kiss through recordings alone? Or does the live show, like you said, Claudio, the mythology, their personalities, do they play an equal or even bigger role? Do they even play a lesser role? Or just an equal or greater role? Claudio, back to you. What do you think about that?
I think you can't fully understand a band through recordings alone. we agree that recordings are the core, but I think it's just one layer. And in the case of bands like Kiss or Queen, that they have this identity, they have to be combined with the visuals, with the live shows, with the spectacle, with the act. As we mentioned many times, it was the act. It's an experience. If you've never been into a Kiss show, I think it's really hard to become a fan and build loyalty only through the music. So that's my take on this one. As I said before, it's only one layer, but in the case of Kiss, it's so important.
Okay. Patrick.
In my case, the story of how I discovered Kiss is really interesting. I had an older brother who was older than me at the time. In '77, he became friends with a guy who was a little older than him. And he says, I have this extra ticket for this concert. It was the '77 concert in Montreal. Me too. I hate him, by the way. No, not true. But nevertheless, he saw the show. He did not become a fan. But in those days, he didn't have internet. So he showed me a magazine maybe a few weeks later. And it was the first album cover. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. It surely looks interesting. Make a long story short, we see a cousin. He says, I have Kiss Alive. He says, I didn't really get into it because I expected it's something more like Genesis, Peter Gabriel type of music. So I said, would you lend me that record? I'm curious to hear it. And knowing myself, it's either I would have loved it or said, well, you know what? Makeup, interesting concept, but the music, not my taste. So therefore, I was a few years, I only had the music and the very rare TV appearances that we had. So therefore, for me, believe it or not, the music was what made me become a fan more, because knowing myself, I didn't like the music. I would be like, well, the concept is interesting, the makeup looks cool and everything, but the music is something that really doesn't appeal to me, so therefore I'm not a fan. But I like the music so much that, yeah, of course, I don't kid myself. Had Kiss not worn the makeup or had listened to Neil Bogart and not used the makeup, we wouldn't be talking here today.
Okay. Michael.
So can you truly understand a band through their recordings alone? If that band is Kiss, the answer is easy. No. The music is great. And, it's, as I've said before, it's the necessary starting point, usually for me. The music has to hook me in. But in the case of Kiss, no, you cannot fully understand them without sitting down, I guess nowadays, on your computer or in front of your phone, pulling up some live footage and, okay, what's this band about? Oh, they had a period where they wore costumes. Oh, and they had a period where they didn't wear costumes and no makeup. Oh, okay. And then they went back to it. Okay. Slowly but surely you can discover that there's more to it than just, the recordings. And for me personally, I think that is because most of the artists that I like, as I've said before, there's a very strong live component there. It's people on stage, singing, playing guitar, bass guitar, keyboards, horns, drums, whatever it may be, but people are making the music. It's not someone pressing a button on a computer. And that's basically it. So, so can you get into a band just by recordings alone? Yeah, it's possible. I think so. Yeah, you could. I know I couldn't though. And especially in the case of Kiss, no, like I said, I got into them, really got into them. Like I knew about them for 10 years, but I really got into them when I saw the Houston '77 show. And as I said to you many years ago, once, I was watching the video, and by the time Paul started levitating during Love Gun, I was like, yep, that's it. I'm sold. Where do I sign up? Where do I sign up? That was it. I have no shame in saying it. And that's basically it. Some people see a cute face and they say, "Ooh, they're cute. I'll go out and, and buy their music based on that." It's all good. There's a reason. There's no bad reason necessarily, but it's your own personal reason. But at the end of the day, like I said, if I was sitting there watching that video and not enjoying the songs, then, the result might have been different, but it turned out the way it did, and I'm sitting here talking with you three guys. So
This is interesting because, yes, I agree. When it comes to Kiss, recordings alone won't cut it. But I do believe you can get into a band with recordings alone. I got into Van Halen, April Wine, Iron Maiden, just through their music. Before I saw them live. Damn Truth as well. But the interesting thing is, if you go through my record collection, you see my musical DNA in there. Because the first band I ever got into was Kiss. And then the second band I got into was Van Halen. Van Halen sounded like Kiss at the time. And that's why I got into them, you know? So a lot of the music sort of has offshoots of the band. But again, we're talking about Kiss. And no, in terms of Kiss, it's not just the music. It has to be like, to understand the band, you have to see the full picture, the live show, the mythology, the personalities, and then the music. So how
Well,
do you
you touched on a very important point, because you made the analogy of saying that sometimes you get into a band through the music, but the question is, if you want to truly understand a band, that's the key thing. So,
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. And do I truly understand Van Halen, April Wine, Iron Maiden? No, I don't.
Right.
Do I understand Kiss? Absolutely, you're right. Absolutely not.
Right.
But yes, you need all of that to truly understand the band. But in the terms of Kiss, how do you do that? You have to bring people into the Kiss world. True story. Every time I have somebody do work at my house, a plumber, electrician, something, I always tell them, don't charge me for the extra half hour. They go, what do you mean by that? You'll see when you get here, right? And when they get here and they see my collection, they lose their effing minds, man. They take out their phones, they're taking pictures of my stuff. I got guitars lined up just for them. I do that all the time. I have guitars lying there. They take a picture with the guitar. They do the Gene Simmons tongue every single time. People come into my house. They're taking pictures everywhere. I'm going to get robbed one day, but they're taking pictures everywhere. That's freaking crazy. And these people are going to remember this band because of that. My neighbor downstairs didn't know anything about Kiss. He met me, came up to my place, saw my collection. I gave him the tour. And I started talking about my passion, the reason I got into Kiss and why I love Kiss so much. And because of that, to this day, he's into the band now. And we're trying to get him on the podcast as well. He's into the band because of that. So I truly believe, Claudia, you get fans into our rooms, people into it, they're going to become fans.
Yeah.
If someone comes in and goes, oh, this is weird, they're lost. Forget it. But if they have a spark of interest, we got them. That's the hook.
Yeah. So guys, before we get into our 5 songs, so here's a question to think about. Is it better to ease someone in with the band's most accessible material, or go straight to the core identity, the deep cuts, the obscure material? So what do you think? Is it easier to get someone, with the most accessible stuff? Or let's say you want to know what this band is about, so you play some tunes that they were never played on the radio or anything. So Pasc, this time on to you.
Okay. I'm going to say neither, because Claudio, we've interviewed hundreds of people on this show, and most of them, they always say, they got into the present version of the band. And the present version of the band isn't necessarily the most accessible, and it definitely isn't their core identity. It's just who the band is today. And how many people got into the band because of Sonic Boom, because of Monster? I wouldn't say those 2 albums are accessible. It's not mainstream. It's definitely not core identity, but people got into it because of that. So I think the secret is the now. What is the band like now? If you could hook fans into who the band is today, then you got them. But if you, and Patrick, you mentioned it, show them Creatures of the Night, Lick It Up, Rock and Roll Over. I'm not sure fans today will get into the band if they just listen to those albums, because they're going to, like you said yourself, oh, they're old timers. This is old. Even Psycho Circus is over 20 years old now.
Mm-hmm.
That's a classic. It's vintage.
Yeah.
And when kids hear vintage and old, they tune out.
Yeah.
You give them something recent, and if they like it, and there might be a song in there that was not a hit. It's not a typical Kiss song, but it's catchy, it's fun, it's modern, and that song could hook that kid. And if it does, then maybe that kid will want to learn more about the band. So I don't believe it's either accessible or core identity. It's the now.
It's okay. Okay, good one. Patrick, what do you think?
I think if you you may want to start with the more known songs because to some people you tell them, "Oh, Kiss, oh yeah, I was made," or they sing a rock and roll night, whatever. I would say, okay, this is your entrance. Those tunes are your entrance. Now, let me show you what me, Patrick, I think what Kiss is.
Okay.
I'll give you Strutter. I'll give you Firehouse. I'll give you God of Thunder. I'll give you all that stuff. And I'm going to say to you, okay, this is Kiss. According to me, of course. But you start with the bigger songs just to people, I think they need to know what they're getting into. Like the Rolling Stones, as I said earlier, everyone knows Satisfaction or will Start Me Up. So you start with those. Say, oh, you like that? Well, here's more. Here's more. Now I got your attention. Let's get into the deeper cuts.
Mm-hmm.
And Beth as well. Beth, more accessible. So okay, I'll listen to that. And then you go and I Love It Loud, War Machine, that stuff.
Okay. That's a good take. I like it. Michael, what do you think?
So for me, this depends on what kind of a music fan the person is. If they're a casual music fan or a casual music listener, we all know that person who listens to the radio all day, right? Or listens to the radio at work. They have it on a specific radio station for the type of music that they like. That's the kind of person who is a casual music listener. They may know, the latest Taylor Swift song. They know the latest, Beyonce song, etc., etc. But do they have any of the albums? Do they stream the entire albums? From my experience, no, not really. Maybe I'm
So what would you do? What would you do if that person is a casual?
So in the case of a casual music listener, I would gear them towards more of the accessible songs.
Okay.
It's like, okay, well, here's where you start. So, more accessible songs or the more popular songs. So songs like I Was Made for Loving You would fall into that bucket. Rock and Roll All Night into that bucket. Beth into that bucket. Maybe even I Love It Loud would fall into that bucket. But that would be that kind of music fan, a casual music fan. Then you have the other kind of music fan or listener, like the four of us. We're not casual. We're keen. We get into the weeds. We want to find out what was going on in the band's life during this period of time or on this tour. What kind of drugs were they consuming, et cetera, et cetera. That's what we are, So in that case, I would probably gear them more towards something that's going to take them directly to the identity of the band or a good overall representation of the identity of the band. Kiss is not one thing. I think it would be easier, let's say, to do that with a band like AC/DC. But a band like Kiss, who they have a core sound, but they've done other things. They've done music from the Elder. They've done Carnival of Souls. They've done Unmasked. So there are these little anomaly kind of albums that are part of the Kiss identity, but they're not the core identity or what people normally think of when they think of Kiss. There's no song on Carnival of Souls that sounds like Rock and Roll All Night, but Carnival of Souls is still a Kiss album. So yeah, that's how I would do it. If I know the person is more of a casual music fan, then I might say, okay, well, listen to these couple of songs. They're pretty popular. A lot of people know them. Try those out. And then if for some reason, by some miracle, they come back and say, hey, I really enjoyed those 5 songs. Oh, okay. Well, maybe you might want to try listening to these, to this album or that album.
Right.
Kind of thing. So that may turn them into a keen fan or someone who really gets into it,
Okay.
if they're not already like that, you know.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's how I would treat it. What kind of music fan are they?
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's a good approach, and I agree. I sometimes it's hard to know, what kind of listener that person is. So that's why I liked, what Pat was saying about kind of the 1-2 punch, the kind of a hybrid strategy. I think that's awesome. I in my case, I could start with an accessible, getaway track to kind of hook them emotionally, just to get, oh yeah, I heard that song somewhere. So to kind of create that connection. And right after that, I would follow up with a chord track, or a video. In the case of Kiss, if I only had the choice to show this person one song, I would insist to show them a video of Detroit Rock City live. Okay, and that's my bet. Okay, so I'm putting all my expectations there. I think that the visual component of Kiss is so big that we can't avoid giving them the full package. But yeah, again, if it's about the music, I could start with something well known and then try to get them into I wouldn't say deeper cuts because sometimes they are even harder for us to digest, but some of the not so well known songs.
You want to get someone into Kiss? Don't tell them it's Kiss,
That's a good one,
right?
That's a good one too. Yeah,
because people listen with their eyes.
yeah, yeah.
I strongly believe their best song ever. And how can anybody hate this song? I mean, anybody on this planet hate this song is Detroit Rock City. And I've often played Detroit Rock City in my class. Kids don't like it. I thought, how can you not like the song? It's amazing. They don't like it. And yes,
wow.
Claudio, I tried with the video as well. It looks too old.
Yeah.
Right? It looks too old. They tune out. So what I do is, especially at the end of the year or during Christmas, we're playing music in the classroom, and I always throw in a couple of Kiss songs. And the kids have no idea it's Kiss. And I want to see if they like the song or not. Now, I'm not going to play the old stuff. They're going to catch that right away. Because I think to us, those early songs, those early albums are still relevant today for us.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure it is for today's generation. So I often play their latest stuff off of Sonic Boom and Monster, and see if they like that. I don't play the obvious Beth and Rock and Roll All Night, and they know those songs, and they won't get into the band because of it. But I want to see if they truly would appreciate a Kiss song without knowing it's Kiss.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
even from the sound perspective,
Exactly.
if you show them, the latest material, it sounds more fresh, So if it's something from the 2000s, let's say, or something like that.
Well, Sonic Boom, it sounds fresh, but also, in my opinion, but also very 70s.
Yeah.
I had a friend of mine in the car one time. She's not a Kiss fan. I played Sonic Boom for her, and she liked it. She goes, "This sounds very 70s, but it's relevant today." Those were her words. It's like, yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, boys. So this is the moment of truth. So what 5 Kiss songs would you use to introduce new fans to Kiss? And for each song, tell us why you made that particular choice. The floor is yours. And we'll start with Patrick.
Okay, now the first one, Strutter. Why, you ask? Because for me, it's a little, well, sentimental. It might be a strong word, but it's a significant part in history because that's the first song that Gene, Paul, and Peter. That's the first song that they went, oh, this could work. They had tried previously some other, like a rehearsal before, and they said it didn't go well. But Peter said that once Paul played Strutter, that was it. So to me, this is the catalyst song for Kiss. The other song, I couldn't do it without an Ace song. Sorry, people. Shocked me because people have to know that there is a George Harrison in Kiss. Also, you can't do it without Beth because it shows that Kiss can do other things. That they can be what people say they're not, which is diverse. Uh, Fourth song, God of Thunder. To me, this is the quintessential Super Kiss era song. Especially when you see them live, Gene drops the blood and everything, and it's like, to me, it's such a. I like the tone of that song, the ambience of it. Not many fans like the studio version, but I do love it personally. Now, my last one, Unholy, which people are going to go, why? Because it proves that Kiss can also be a heavy metal band. I'll never forget the first time I heard Unholy, I went, oh my God, they're back.
Mhm.
So to me, it has that tone, and that Kiss can also be dark and can have that approach and make it work. Because I think most fans were ecstatic when this came out. So I think that would be my introduction to Kiss, because a lot of people that don't know Kiss, they go, "Oh yeah, it was made for loving you." No, no, they do have other stuff that you know that's going to melt your skull.
Mhm. I
Nice.
love it.
Nice. Michael.
Okay, so I went through a couple of iterations of my top five. I mean, this could easily be another different five songs in 2 days' time or a week's time or whatever. But I geared this towards somebody who wants to understand the band and get into them and understand what they are about. So this is not for a casual fan. Okay, I mean, I rattled off a few songs earlier. If a casual fan wanted to know Kiss, okay, well, there's this, and this. But this is not for a casual fan. This is someone who wants to try and understand an overall identity of the band. So I tried to do a little bit of everything. The one song in common I have with Patrick, Strutter. First song, first album. Here's where it all began. Quintessential, classic sounding Kiss. This is bread and butter. So this has to be one of the five songs. Number 2, Love Gun. Also classic sounding, but also heavier sounding, and it also is a nice showcase of Peter's drumming. Okay, and that machine gun drumming is, that's unique. That gives the song a bit of uniqueness there. So for me, that kind of fits in well. Number 3, I wasn't sure whether to include God of Thunder or War Machine, but at the end of the day, I'm including War Machine, the first Gene song. Why? Because it shows Kiss as a heavier band, borderline heavy metal band, but it also shows, hey, there were other people in Kiss. You hear that? That's Eric Carr on the drums. And that drum sound, yeah, that's part of this band's legacy. So so War Machine would be in there. The band had a non-makeup period. Let's have a song to tell this person, hey, this band also had a period where they didn't wear makeup, and they also made this kind of music, more 80s sounding music. Heaven's on Fire, I think, is a good representation of that. The final song, bit of an outlier, but also something to show that the band could step slightly outside of the box.
Boomerang.
I was going to say that.
No, I was waiting for this moment, man. The whole week.
I love it. Thank you.
Sorry, Mike.
I love it. No problem. I love it. Yes. No, it's not Boomerang. No, a song that puts them slightly outside of the box. And I was kind of like debating, okay, should this be a ballad? Should it be a softer song? In the end, the song I decided as song number 5, Childhood's End. One of my, I'm a fan of the Carnival of Souls album, and that song, that adds another Gene song to this list. I think that song is a good representation of something that Kiss did outside of their classic sound, and it would be a good thing for, a new fan to hear. Like, oh, they also did this. They tried to be a little grungy. They tried to be a little closer to, grunge metal sounding kind of thing, and it kind of shows Gene's softer side,
Nice.
a little bit. So so my 5 songs today, they could change tomorrow: Strutter, Love Gun, War Machine, Heaven's on Fire, and Childhood's End.
Good choices, man. Good choices.
Not Boomerang.
Not Boomerang.
Never Boomerang.
Never,
Not
ever.
today, never.
Look, I like this is great, guys. I like the way, the question is, is phrased. What songs would you use to introduce new fans to Kiss? And I think that what you guys did is fantastic because it covers so many aspects. Same as you, Michael. If you were to ask me this same question tomorrow, maybe I'm going to choose 5 other songs. But what I try to do is, because I cannot escape of the fact that to me Kiss is such a visual and such a live band that the choices that I made, they come, except for one song, they all come from the Alive albums. Okay, so I picked Deuce from Alive. You guys, you used this awesome word, quintessential, Strutter, and to me, Deuce, the minute you start listening to that stuff in Alive, that's a game changer. At least that's how it worked for me. And also from Alive 1, I picked Rock and Roll All Night. I know it's a well-known song, but it still works. Still works, man. You put it everywhere. You put it in a party, in a wedding, in a concert, in a bar, and everybody is rock and rolling, man. So it still works. And that's Kiss. That's entertainment, pure entertainment. So that's the identity of the band. From Alive 2, Detroit Rock City. Again, first song, opens up the album. The crowd there, the energy of that song, it's unbelievable. Now, a song that it doesn't come from an Alive album, but represents a big change for Kiss with our dear loved Eric Carr, Creatures of the Night. I think Creatures of the Night, it's in my book, it's a must, to show to someone saying, so you wanna listen to hard rock, heavy rock, and a huge drum sound and bass. Listen to this song. And the last one from Alive 3, because I wanted to represent also Bruce Kulick and Eric Singer. I Was Made for Loving You. I want to show this person that I was made for loving you. The way it's played on Alive 3 cannot be compared to the original. Still rocks. That's my favorite version of the song. And that shows you how Kiss can basically be a hard rock band and not a pop band.
I agree.
Okay, I'm gonna get killed for this. I'm gonna think outside the box here. But before I give you my top 5, or my 5, not necessarily my top 5, I want to give you some context. So a few years ago, it was back in 1998, I did a video at school called Kissteria. I got to show it to you guys one day. The idea was that Kiss music was infiltrating heritage, and we all got caught with the Kiss bug. So what I did was I was filming all over the school, the principal's office, the secretaries, the classrooms, and I played a Kiss song, and the kids were like, what is that? And all of a sudden they got into it, like they were infected, like a zombie infection. Then they started singing and dancing to the songs. And funny enough, a lot of the songs I used were from Psycho Circus because it was the most relevant record at the time. So it was fresh. Raise Your Glasses was predominant in that particular video. That's number one. And number two, I remember one time we used to have like staff parties every month, and every department was in charge of doing a staff party. And when it came to my department, obviously with me in charge, I wanted to have a kiss idea or party to it, right? So I came and dressed as Gene Simmons. But here's the funny part: when I introduced myself to the staff and I walked into the room, I didn't play a Gene song. I played a Paul song. Because that might be more accessible and easier to the ears for the staff. So maybe it's like, oh, this is a good Kiss song. But if I came in with God of Thunder, and like, I'm not so sure they would have liked that, So that's basically where I'm coming from. I'm looking from a fresh perspective, but also you want to sort of ease them into it by making that song a part of who they are, a part of their identity. And I do use that in my classroom. So my top 5 only come from Sonic Boom and Monster. Weird, huh? But if I were to play this in class, I would sort of connect the song to the lesson or to the kids, right? So number one, an obvious one that maybe kids would relate to is a song like Freak, saying that you are all different. You're all a bunch of freaks, but embrace that. Don't try to be somebody you're not. Who cares what people say about you? What do you worry about what a perfect stranger thinks about you? Just be who you are, and people are going to appreciate that. And don't tell them it's Kiss. Just play the song, and then they're going to connect with the idea that, hey, I am who I am, and I should be who I want to be, and I'm not going to listen to what the naysayers are going to say. And they make that emotional connection to that song. They're more likely to get into a song like Freak. I teach ethics, right? And it's about coming together as a community and diversity and no openness and understanding. Stand by your side. That's another song I would use. Stand from Sonic Boom. You know, the idea of unity and community. They might not necessarily know it's Kiss, but making that association with the lesson and the emotional component of it, they may be more likely to get into a song like that and understand that I thought they were just a bunch of blood-spitting, fire-breathing clowns on stage. But these guys have a lot more depth than I thought. Another one, I love to play this. Again, I don't tell them it's Kiss, but I love to play this at Christmas or end of the year when it's the end of a semester, end of the year, just before the Christmas holidays, before the March break. Say, yeah, man, let's party, let's celebrate. You know, get the kids pumped up. Don't tell them it's Kiss. But now they're going to associate that emotion of joy and freedom and a vacation with Say Yeah. So when they hear it and they go, oh yeah, I remember that song from this class, and associate it with Kiss, maybe they're going to go into the catalog even deeper. Who knows, right? Now, I want to throw in a ballad because ballads are the most accessible songs out there, right? And in my opinion, the best Kiss ballad is Forever. So if I play, like oftentimes the kids ask me, you know, when we have free period, again, end of the year, can you play some music? I always throw Forever in there. And you see the kids bobbing their heads, or especially the girls. It works. Tell them it's Kiss, you know, but it works. To them, this fits in with all of these other songs, you know. So definitely Forever. And I do a lesson called Teenagers and Music, right? So the idea is understanding teenagers through their music. So what I do is I ask the kids to come up with a song that they feel best represents them as individuals, or they feel best represents teens in general. Choose your song and answer these 5 questions and tell us how that song represents you, right? And I always start with All for the Love of Rock and Roll, because it's about the power of music and how music drives us, motivates us, brings us up in our bad times. Music, without music, man, we wouldn't be alive. Music is life. It's part of our DNA. We need music as much as we need food and water. And I tell the kids, I will never, ever put down your music, because if I put down your music, I'm essentially putting you down, because music is personal to each and every one of us. And I love this particular activity because it's very personal. And oftentimes when I present a project in my class, I often do it myself first, right? And I do this particular music project myself, and it's hard for me to come up on in front of the class, which I do every day. But in this case, it's hard because I'm vulnerable now. I'm showing them a vulnerable side of me, a part of me that I don't talk about through the music. So they have a better and deeper and more personal understanding of who I am through their music.
Yeah.
and it's really important. And I love to throw in Kiss in there because I want them to know that Kiss is part of the fabric of music today, not just in the 70s, but today. And they're always going to be part of that fabric.
Oh, that's nice. That's I'm shocked, man. I have to say that that's a very interesting take, Pask, what you took, and it's I was thinking as you were talking that maybe in the because of age or different times, maybe when they were writing stuff for Sonic Boom and Monster, uh, they were writing maybe deeper stuff, that than what they used to do in the 70s,
Exactly.
of course, or the 80s, which it was a different world. But now these guys, they're in their 50s or something, and then they're writing about something a little bit more, more content, I have to say,
Yeah.
emotional content, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, kids, listen to Christine 16. No,
All right.
no. You
Yeah.
got,
Yeah.
you got nothing to lose?
Nothing to
No,
lose. Right. Yeah.
no.
Yeah. Well, this is great, guys. So another beautiful episode. Thanks so much, Pat and Michael, for your
Was a
contributions and
pleasure.
always, your take on things. It's so unique and so personal, which is very enriching for the show. So thanks a lot, man.
You're welcome.
So,
All
guys,
good.
listen, before we go, at the point of this recording, it's now July 23rd, and this episode is going to be released a month from now. We just heard that Ozzy Osbourne passed away. And by the time this episode airs, it'll be a month after the fact. But I think it's still important, and we talked about it, Michael and I, that we say a little something about Ozzy.
Yes,
So, Pat, we'll start with you. Any words about Ozzy Osbourne?
Oh, listen, we're talking about a major icon in metal, someone who, when we were teenagers, was scary to parents. But as time went by, we discovered that, hey, here's an interesting artist,
Yeah.
and he influenced so many people, and I think we will only begin to realize the importance of this of Ozzy and what he left us, and it's huge. I think someone said the Elvis Presley of metal. I'm afraid that's a good analogy. So we're sadly gonna miss him.
Yeah, yeah. Michael?
Wow, I can tell a really long story here about something, but I don't know if we have the time. But I'll just try and keep it short. I was lucky enough to see Ozzy 8 times during his life, performing life. 4 times with Black Sabbath, 4 times solo. One of those solo times was his 2003 show here in Montreal in June of 2003. The show that is the longest show he ever performed, close to 3 hours long. And now, he'll never break that record. A show that saved my life, I have to say. I was going through a tough time in the early 2000s with my health and a number of other things, and I didn't think I was going to get out of it. I went and saw that show. That man was on stage for 3 hours. He should have been dead 100 times over by 2003, and yet he was on that stage for 3 hours. I remember being on the subway going home thinking to myself, what is my problem? What is my problem? I just saw somebody, like I said, should have been dead 100 times over, and he just put on one of the best shows I've ever seen. I'm gonna change things. It didn't happen overnight, but my attitude within a few days certainly changed.
That's
And
cool.
I wish
Wow.
I wish I could have said that to him. Obviously, I can't now. But yeah, I mean, that's just one example of how music can definitely help people.
Yeah.
And I have all his albums in my collection. Everything he did with Sabbath, I have in my collection. He's pretty important. Calling him the Elvis Presley of heavy metal is accurate for 2 separate reasons. But yeah, I mean, he's going to be missed. I mean, we're at the point, you live long enough, and a lot of your idols or a lot of the people you look up to are going to die on you.
Yeah.
If I
But
can
yeah,
say so, for myself, Serge Fiori, not many people
yep,
know who he is, but he's
Yeah.
my icons, well, along with Gene Ace, Paul, and Peter.
Yeah.
Say that.
yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Armenian.
I agree. He passed away not that long ago
Yeah,
as well. You know,
crazy. But as you said, as we grow older, it's going to happen more, unfortunately.
Yeah.
yeah, and that's it. But the positive here is that you look at what they left behind. The music, the live performances, etc., the memories. You know, and yeah, that's all I have to say.
Okay, that's
Okay.
beautiful. Thank you, Claudio.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to start by saying the same thing that passed. Thank you, Michael, for sharing your story, and this truly shows that we're friends, we're family, and we take music, just as a pathway of sharing, friendship amongst us. So, and what music means to all of us, and in the case of Ozzy, I have to say, it was a really sad day for me. It still is. Um, but the legacy, what he left in terms of music and art, because he was not only making music, he was an artist. It's undeniable, and I think it's unmatched. He was truly a big one of the big ones. Okay, and you don't find those people that seem to come from another planet very often. He was something different, and all I can say is that I'm happy that he was able to say goodbye to his fans, to the world, with the fantastic celebration that took place in Birmingham. He knew it was coming, he felt it, and he wanted to say goodbye on stage, even though he couldn't stand up. You could still see his energy, the light in his eyes while he was singing. He was still there, man. That was the same Ozzy at 76, with a lot of health issues, but still Ozzy. To me, the beauty of Ozzy is that he was a true metal guy. There was no marketing there. In all his career, of course, there were different, eras and, dressing like this, dressing like that. But deep inside, he was a true metal guy.
Listen, I got to be honest. I was never a big mega Ozzy fan. I liked Ozzy, obviously, but never a big fan. Yet his death hit me really, really hard. And I couldn't believe when I saw it on Facebook. This has got to be a joke. I couldn't believe it, and to this day, to now, I'm just in shock.
Yeah,
that it happened. And yes, you could see it coming, but you're never ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I like when Michael Jackson passed away. I wasn't a fan of Michael Jackson at all, and it hit me so hard.
yeah.
It just goes to show the cultural impact someone like Ozzy has had on pop culture and music. We might not even know it, but I'd be curious to know. I wish I was teaching today, because I think it would have had an impact on the kids, even though they may not have known Ozzy, but his influence is everywhere, whether you like him or not. And it's interesting because if we were to do this particular episode on Ozzy, I think we'd come up with the same conclusion as we did with Kiss. But now that he's passed away, it's making you realize, oh my God, it's so much more than that. It's so
Right.
much more than just the
Yeah.
music,
Yeah.
just the icing. It's about the person and
Yes.
the legacy and what he gave to this world. And for millions of people to be hit so hard as we've been hit, whether you're a fan or not, says something to the
Oh, yeah.
legacy of who this man was.
Mhm.
He was an incredible person, and he will be sorely, sorely missed.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So on that note, thank you very much for coming on the show. This was
Thank
a
you so
really
much.
interesting discussion. I got to try out my new microphone. And guys, as always, it was a pleasure, and we'll do this again really, really soon.
Take care,
Thank you.
folks.
To the Kiss Army, we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please send them to talktome@kissarmynationpodcast.com. Until the next time, remember, never stop rocking. Take care, everyone.